Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on the royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: King Charles says no to Harry's plan. Backfires over Archie and Lilibet's royal title. An insider source said that throughout the significant upheaval in the royal family, Prince William is still reforming the royal family's operations with King Charles's permission. The royal family has a lot of problems. The media will soon be talking about Camilla, Prince Andrew, and Prince Harry's future. The insider said that King Charles had the last word, no. Harry's plan fails because of Archie and Lilibet. King Charles's actions in the history showed what he wanted for Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, came back to the UK in early May 2024 to take part in a service at St. Paul's Cathedral to honor the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games. He started the Games to help wounded, ill, and injured service members and veterans. The centenary was a great time to remember the hard work, recovery, and friendships that the Games had brought about amongst nations. Invictus has become one of Harry's most important and enduring public projects. He has used his military experience and personal commitment to create a worldwide platform for advocacy. The visit also brought back and made people more aware of how badly the Duke and the rest of the royal family get along. What some people may have thought was a public event that brought people together was to many spectators simply another very public part of a story of estrangement and conflict inside institutions. The trip concluded without Harry seeing his father, King Charles III. This made people think more about the complicated relationships between family loyalty, institutional duty, and the monarchy's uncertain future. Before the ceremony at St. Paul's, a spokesman for the Duke said that he would not be able to meet with the King during the visit since the King had a full schedule. The short statement said, "Due to His Majesty's busy schedule, it will unfortunately not be possible for the Duke to meet with his father during his visit to the UK this week. The Duke knows about his father's busy schedule and different priorities, and he is looking forward to meeting with him soon. This reason is simple and appropriate for the occasion. Senior royals' calendars are traditionally very well scheduled and full with events." However, the official confirmation did little to lessen the intense interest and speculation over whether or not senior royals are dating. Since the Sussexes stepped down as active members of the royal family in 2020, analysts have tried to figure out a way forward that includes legal battles, high-profile interviews, business ventures, and constant media attention. All of these things have led to public discussions about the reasons for the split and the possibility of reconciliation. The time and place of the missing encounter were very important, both literally and symbolically. King Charles had officially acknowledged earlier this year that he had cancer and had begun treatment. He had begun to take up public duties again, and people were closely watching his return to public life as a sign of both his health and the institution's strength. The first Buckingham Palace garden party of the season was conducted on the day Harry arrived. It was a highly public ceremonial affair meant to show that everything were still the same. The father and child were just a few miles away in London, but there was a bigger emotional and institutional gap between them. Many experts believe that the absence of a meeting is a sign of a long-standing rift within the royal family, not just a scheduling issue. The most recent event in a long story shaped by different ideas about privacy duty and the right balance between personal grievances and the norms that govern the constitutional monarchy. The main points of contention in that story are the security arrangements, the position of non-working royals, and the Duke and Duchess's two children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, and how they were raised and what their future holds. To fully grasp the significant consequences of a missed chance to reconcile, one must examine the interplay among personal grievances, institutional requirements, and societal expectations that together define what many analysts regard as the most critical crisis encountered by the House of Windsor in recent times. Prince Harry and the British government have been at odds for a long time about security procedures. Since relocating to North America, the Duke has been in a long fight with the Home Office about getting state-funded police protection for him and his family when they visit the UK. On the surface, the issue seems to be a logistical debate about bodyguards and deployment details. However, it really raises deep questions about Harry's relationship with the state, how he views personal danger, and the privileges he believes he should still have as a former senior royal. The Sussexes, like other senior royals, were protected by the Metropolitan Police Service's Royalty and Specialist Security Command, RASP, when they were full-time working members of the royal family. This security was paid for the taxpayers. RASP has a restricted but important job. It looks at threats to those who are more likely to be in danger because of their rank or fame, and it gives them the security they need, including weapons intelligence coordination and armed response. People who do public duties for the Crown have always thought of this protection as part of their job. The state has a duty to safeguard public personalities whose fame and deeds make them easy targets for harm. The reason is clear: persons who work for the government or the Crown are in danger because they are agents of the state, and the state has a vested interest in protecting those it puts in official positions. After the Sussexes decided in 2020 to step down from their royal duties and go overseas, British officials effectively reviewed and changed that constitutional prerogative. The Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, or RAVEC for short, is the official body that decides how to protect the royal family and public figures. They decided that the Sussexes would no longer automatically get state protection just because of their family ties. The committee established a bespoke framework for figuring out security needs on a case-by-case basis. For each visit to Britain, the kind of public engagement planned and the level of threat at the time protection would be dependent on those things. This strategy connected resource distribution more directly to clear duties and visible positions rather than just to lineage. The recalibration showed that the institution was changing in a bigger way. After King Charles III took the throne, palace advisors have talked about a streamlined or slimmed-down monarchy. This would mean that a small group of senior working royals would be in charge of representational duties, while a larger group of relatives would live their own lives outside of the daily duties of the monarchy. Politicians that value openness, accountability, and public spending found the reason to be strong. A smaller formal royal family means fewer people undertaking public duties that taxpayers pay for, and makes it easier to tell who the Crown's representatives are at state occasions and in foreign diplomacy. Authorities stated that giving automatic state security to those who aren't doing official duties might create a confusing half-in, half-out status, which would make it harder for the government to be accountable and govern. Prince Harry has long argued that the unusual combination of his public presence and military service makes him a constant and particular security danger that doesn't go away even when he and his family aren't doing official duties. He has said that his time in the military, his job as a well-known advocate for veterans throughout the globe, and the fact that he is still getting a lot of public attention make him vulnerable. His lawyers have made it clear that privately funded security measures in the United States can't do some of the things that state police in the United Kingdom can do, like legally carrying guns, getting access to domestic intelligence, and working with local law enforcement agencies. The effect is both procedural and practical. Private teams, no matter how skilled they are, work outside of the legal and intelligence systems that public police forces employ to find and stop threats in the UK. Harry has offered to pay for police protection himself during public disputes, but the Home Office and law enforcement organizations turned down this offer. Supporters say that British police policy is based on the idea that the police are a public service and can't be utilized as a private service for individuals. Doing so would go against the service's impartiality and constitutionally non-commercial nature. Officials have expressed concern that the commercialization of police resources to private individuals would create a difficult precedent because access to public services would be seen as dependent on financial standing. The Home Office and RASP believe that public protection should not be based on political beliefs, but rather on set rules and duties. Harry thinks that not getting automatic protection is an unacceptable loss of the safety that should come with his previous service and current public presence. For him, it is an issue of personal safety that has to be fixed by the law. These differences in framing may have been a bureaucratic disagreement that was worked out via internal negotiation in a different situation. Instead, they went via the legal system and made arguments that were both legal and well-known. A High Court judge threw out Prince Harry's lawsuit in February 2024, saying that the committee's customized approach to security was neither illegal nor unreasonable, and that it worked within a reasonable administrative framework by choosing to evaluate security on a visit-by-visit basis, instead of giving him back the automatic entitlement that came with his previous senior royal status. The court simply looked at whether the committee's decision-making process was legitimate and made sense. It didn't look at whether Harry faced particular threats at various times. After the verdict, Harry's lawyers said they would appeal, saying that the standards need to be looked at more closely in court and that the Duke wants a fair and legal application of the criteria rather than special treatment. As a result, the argument has turned into a long public discussion about rights precedents and how to read institutional rules. Many who support Harry view the fight as a dedicated parent's urge to protect his children. On the other hand, many who don't like him see it as an attempt to keep the benefits of royal life while avoiding the historical duties that come with that rank. Any planned trip to Britain, whether for family reunions, ceremonies, anniversaries, or legal obligations, now necessitates careful legal, logistical, and public relations planning. This has turned what used to be a private family matter into a matter of constitutional and public debate. The process has shown the interaction among legal procedures, media narratives, and institutional norms in shaping the public life of the modern monarchy. King Charles III's choice to meet his son on the May visit was a difficult one that included both personal duty and constitutional duty. Like many fathers, he struggles with the natural tension between his paternal instincts and the limits of his role. In his case, these limits are made worse by the fact that millions of people are watching him closely to determine whether the monarchy can survive personal problems. Harry made a brief secret trip to the UK earlier this year to see his father at Clarence House after his cancer diagnosis was made public. Palace insiders said the meeting was serious, but short, lasting less than an hour. Some people thought the meeting showed that things might get better, especially because of how bad the king's health was. The May visit, on the other hand, was planned public and linked to ongoing legal problems and public criticism. These factors changed the political importance of any possible reunion. From an institutional point of view, the king's choice to skip a meeting with his son while sticking to a full public agenda may be considered as a smart and constitutional move. Royal analysts and constitutional commentators say that holding a very public meeting could be seen as support for the Duke's ongoing legal and public work, which could make it harder for the monarch and his advisors to draw the lines between institutions that they have been trying to do since the Sussexes left. A public reunion between a monarch and a dissident family member amid ongoing disputes concerning security and public statements could set a precedent that complicates the governance of the royal household. It may be perceived as prioritizing personal relationships over institutional regulations regarding entitlement and duty. This judgment is particularly important for a king or queen who has spent decades at their job and who values institutional stability above all else. The apparent prejudice of a royal, especially in family matters, undermines the perception of the crown's impartiality and obscures the identity of the state's representative. King Charles and his advisors have made the household's public image a top priority. They have made it clear who conducts official responsibilities, who gets government help, and why. In this case, keeping a formal distance at a public gathering could show less personal antagonism and more a purposeful attempt to follow institutional rules. This position has a lot of emotional costs, which have caused problems between father and son that many people think might have been avoided if they had been allowed to work things out privately. The choice shows that the crown's perceived needs may occasionally come before personal sentiments. The present monarchy's focus on managing boundaries applies to both current precedents and long-lasting institutional structures. Palace strategists and constitutional advisors have been pushing for a monarchy model that lowers risks, makes it clear who is responsible, and reduces the number of people who are openly linked to the state's representational structure. The paradigm posits that privileges associated with royal status, such as state-funded security official travel and representative resources, ought to be proportional to the fulfillment of public duties. Allowing exclusions puts the creation of a more casual, less accountable system at risk, since it's hard for the public to tell who works for the crown and who works for themselves. Advocates for transparency inside the institution argue that the inflexible components of this strategy preserve the monarchy's legitimacy in a democratic age, marked by intense public scrutiny and calls for transparency. The problem is made worse by the fact that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, has been away from Britain for a long time. She hasn't been to the UK in a long time since she gave up her royal duties. She didn't go with her husband to the Invictus anniversary in May, or to meet his father in February. She also didn't go to Britain for several of Harry's court hearings about litigation against parts of the British press. She went to Nigeria with Harry right after his visit to the UK for a 3-day tour relating to the Invictus Games and mental health projects in Africa. This shows how much of the couple's public work is happening outside of Britain. People had different ideas about why Meghan wasn't there, and these ideas typically reflected how people saw the couple and the media in general. People who agree with her say that British tabloids were quite harsh and often mean when she was living in Britain, and that both her and Harry have spoken about how it affected their mental health in great detail. From this perspective, isolating oneself from British tabloids and the formality of royal life is an act of self-preservation and a means of protecting family privacy. Meghan has started businesses and done charitable work because she lived in California. She has worked on media and creative projects, as well as looked into lifestyle and branding projects that show her commitment to building her own public persona and making money outside of the royal family. Some observers think that her absence shows that the two of them have different priorities in their relationship. Harry is presented as always dealing with parts of his British past, such court cases, media criticism, and occasional attempts at reconciliation. Meghan, on the other hand, tends to focus more on their life in the United States. This difference has led to claims that Meghan is building a public persona and career outside of the royal family. Whether intentional or a natural consequence of their post-royal pursuits, the visual and symbolic contrast Harry in Britain and Meghan at home strengthens the perception that the couple is on divergent paths, Harry as a figure still linked to his heritage and previous duties, and Meghan as an entrepreneur and philanthropist, establishing an independent course in America. The real-world effects of this difference are quite big. Harry's solo trips make him even more alone and put him under constant watch by the British media, which leads to strange and frequently provocative stories. Meghan's absence, on the other hand, protects her from the constant media fallout and gives her more time to craft a long-term public strategy. The separation, whether pragmatic or reflective of differing beliefs, complicates the narrative of collaborative healing and highlights the uneven progression of the couple's post-royal life. This family fight is about two kids who have titles and places in the line of succession because of their birth, but they have little say over how their family's public image is affected. Prince Archie was born in 2019, and Princess Lilibet was born in 2021. They are 6th and 7th in line to the throne, but their parents have made sure that they grow up in a very private and mostly Californian way. Their experiences are different from those of their relatives who have generally grown up in Britain's ceremonial realm and taken on public-facing employment, school attendance habits, and ceremonial observances that have clearly linked them to the institution. The children's limited contact with Britain and senior royals has always been a topic of interest and discussion. Royal kids have always been displayed in official pictures at ceremonial occasions and doing rituals that plainly connect them to the institution. However, Archie and Lilibet's important life events, like as Lilibet's baptism, have been kept hidden on purpose. Lilibet was baptized in a small private ceremony in California without any senior royals. This choice shows that the Sussexes are intentionally breaking with tradition and have given a lot of thought to the line between their private family life and their public duties. This difference has a lot of symbolic meaning. Tradition continuity and the seeming link between the royal family and the people are the main reasons why the British monarchy is seen as legitimate. The royal rites of passage, public engagements of young members, and planned rituals of continuity are ways for the organization to maintain its power and emotional importance throughout time. The way that two American-raised children, even if they have British royal titles, will interact with these traditions throughout time is important from a legal, constitutional, and symbolic point of view. Some observers have suggested that Archie and Lilibet might work as humanizing links, allowing senior royals to connect with people on an emotional level, which could help bring people together and improve public opinion. Some people take a more business-like view. Access to the children may be used as a bargaining chip in conversations about security status and the terms under which the Sussexes can return to the institution. The palace's guiding idea has long been that any restoration of status or change in protective arrangements must follow institutional rules, putting procedure above sentiment in the short term. The most significant and well-studied split has happened between Prince William and Prince Harry. Before, many said that the two brothers were quite close since they had gone through a lot of the same things and had to deal with the intense scrutiny of life as a king. Their relationship has become worse in the last several years, to the point that they now appear to live in mostly separate worlds. When Harry visited London recently, there was no sign that they had spoken to each other. William, as the heir to the throne, went about his official duties, and his silence was generally perceived as a deliberate choice. Harry's 2023 memoir, Spare, showed how the brothers' relationship had become worse with intimate and important details about family relationships, money issues, and private fights. The book's revelations, stories of arguments and supposed confrontations, as well as honest remarks on anger and miscommunication, got mixed reactions. William, the Prince of Wales, and the person who would take over the responsibilities of the sovereign, saw this public exposure of private matters as a breach of trust. The royal philosophy behind the saying, "Never complain, never explain," goes beyond only public relations. In institutional settings, it is viewed as necessary to protect the monarchy's mystique and unity. William believed that Harry's discoveries put that principle at danger, and hence the institutional stability that he is supposed to preserve. Many commentators believe that it will be very hard for the brothers to get back together since William has responsibilities that go beyond personal problems to institutional ones. He is responsible for protecting the crown's dignity and continuity. In this case, forgiveness means promises that further disclosures or public criticisms will stop. Many people think these promises are unlikely since the Sussexes are still doing business and getting media attention. William's concentration on continuity and caution and Harry's push for narrative openness and change show how deep the disagreements are about what the modern monarchy should be like. The brothers' lack of touch during the May visit was perceived as both a personal insult and a sign of a larger strategic problem. For now, the gap between them is still vast and unbridgeable. There is a lot of institutional pressure on this family to get along. With the death of Queen Elizabeth II and serious health problems affecting two of its most senior members, the monarchy is going through an incredible change. King Charles's cancer diagnosis and the Princess of Wales's public reports of her preventative medical treatment have made it necessary to change public engagements and give other royals from Queen Camilla to the Prince of Wales more work to do to keep the institution's public-facing operations running. The Sussexes' absence is considered as a loss not just for the royal family but also for the public and the monarchy's efforts to show continuity and strength. The royal family has tried to change how people see them in order to make people feel safe in a world that is always looking for signs of stability. A story of business as usual, which includes the king taking on responsibilities again on purpose, senior working royals following a set schedule of engagements and a steady stream of public-facing activities, is meant to show that the institution is strong even when there are problems within. As part of that strategic attitude, they have firmly turned down Prince Harry's requests to be reinstated to senior duties or to have a particular security arrangement. Officials and advisors at the palace think that this post is necessary to keep clear rules regarding who may do official business and who can get public support. There are a lot of hazards with this procedure. The people of Britain are divided on the issue. Some people value allegiance to the institution and the necessity for stability, while others agree with Harry's pleas for privacy and security and criticize what they regard as a vengeful response from the palace. Ongoing media coverage of family fights is bad for the royal family's reputation. The more people know about the royal family's private problems, the more likely it is that the monarchy will lose its symbolic authority. The monarchy's biggest difficulty right now is probably how to deal with internal disagreements while yet satisfying modern standards for transparency, accountability, and individual freedom. The family's handling of the Sussexes' situation dealing with legal security and family issues will make it harder for them to balance tradition with the public's growing need for openness and uniqueness. The Invictus Anniversary Tour brought these problems to light. Prince Harry's trip to the UK for the 10th anniversary showed how paradoxical his situation was. He was a public figure, praised for his work on veterans' issues and mental health, yet he felt alone in the institution that made him who he is. Not being able to meet with his father goes beyond a simple scheduling problem. It shows a deep and fundamental divide over security procedures, the duties that come with being royal, and the bigger question of how a modern monarchy should define its boundaries. The stalemate is complicated. It is caused by a legal dispute with the Home Office that makes it hard for the family to travel. The monarch has to balance personal desires with the duty to protect the crown's integrity. The Duke and Duchess have different paths after their royal duties. Harry seems to be drawn back to his British roots while Meghan builds a public and professional presence in America. The situation is made worse by the rift between two brothers whose childhood closeness has been replaced by conflicting goals for public life. Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet are at the center of these fights. Their titles bring to mind a royal family that the public hasn't seen much of. The royal family continues its work showing that things are stable and making it clear that there is a difference between those who are doing their jobs and those who have left. For a possible reconciliation to happen, both sides would probably have to make concessions that neither side seems willing to make right now. For example, Harry would probably have to tone down his public criticisms and legal actions, and the institution would have to think about giving an exceptional status without breaking the rules it wants to follow. The palace gates may remain closed both as a symbol and maybe in real life until a solution is found. The story of Prince Harry and his family is a modern royal tragedy, a complicated story of love loss and responsibility in which the gap between personal desire and public duty is likely to last for a long time. The Invictus Anniversary once again showed the divide. What was supposed to be a celebration of recovery and resilience turned into a public record of unresolved complaints, disputed boundaries, and the undeniable truth that in modern constitutional monarchies, family life and statehood are often intertwined. It is yet unclear how the discrepancy will be settled, whether via future anniversaries, private reconciliations, or court decisions. The main problem facing the House of Windsor right now is finding a balance between institutional consistency and familial harmony. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share it.